Welcome students. So far we have discussed about ignition temperature, flash point, auto ignition temperature. Now we will see how do we control fire. See, burning that produces fire, and fire is useful as well as harmful. We make small fire in a gas stove to cook our food. This is a useful fire. Without fire, we cannot cook our food. But when a fire breaks out in a house, in an office, factory, or a petrol pump, or an electrical equipment, then the fire is harmful. It can cause loss of life, loss of property. So, such fires may be brought under control and extinguished at the earliest. And the process of extinguishing a fire, it's called firefighting. Now, every city and town has a fire service in the form of fire brigade station. So, the firefighters of fire brigade are specialized in putting out fires, and all of us should know the telephone number of the fire service of our city. Okay, so God forbid if a fire breaks out in our house or in our neighborhood, we should at once call the fire service. Now, we should also know how fire is caused and what are the different ways of firefighting or putting off fire. So, let us discuss that. Any fire needs three things to be present, right? There are three criteria for combustion. What were they? The first was fuel or the combustible substance. Second criteria was the presence of air or oxygen. And the third criteria was the presence of heat so that the substance can reach its ignition temperature and can catch fire. Now, if we want to put off the fire, what we need to do? If any of these three criteria is not fulfilled, there will be no combustion, right? So there will be no fire. So fire can be extinguished in three ways. First, by removing the fuel or the combustible substance. Second, by removing the heat, by cooling with water. And the third, by cutting off the air supply to the burning substances. Now, we'll discuss these three ways of extinguishing fire in detail one by one. So, let's discuss the remove the fuel. See, students, a fuel, it's a food for fire, right? So, when a fire starts, all the combustible substances should be removed at once. Suppose there might be furniture, cloths, books. These are all combustible substances. So at once remove all the combustible substances so that fire may not spread. Suppose if cooking gas cylinder is there, remove that first. Electricity should be switched off. So first of all, you need to remove the combustible substance as soon as possible. But if it's however not possible to remove all the combustible substances from the place of fire, so the second thing which you can do is that is remove the heat. See, water is used to remove heat from a burning substance and to make it cool to burn further. So basically, what does water do? Water is quite cold. Therefore, whenever you put water over a hot substance, it reduces the overall temperature of that substance. So basically, instead of providing heat, you are actually making the substance more cold. So you are reducing the temperature of the combustible substance. Now, when you reduce the temperature, what happens? Again, the substance temperature comes below the ignition temperature, and below the ignition temperature, the substance cannot catch fire. And that is why it doesn't catch fire again. And that is how the fire stops. See, what is fire? It's nothing but the result of reaction of substance with oxygen. So right now the substance is still in contact with oxygen, but it is not able to release enough energy because it has not reached its ignition temperature. So that is how the fire is put off, because the temperature falls below the ignition temperature. So using water, it's one of the criteria is not fulfilled, and that is why there is no fire. That is how the concept of water as a fire extinguisher works. But now, water cannot be used as a fire extinguisher in all the scenarios. For example, if you take the spaces where there's a lot of electrical equipments or electrical works, wires are there, for example, in offices or the spaces like factories where lot of machines, computers are there, lot of electrical equipments. So involving water, it's not a good choice as fire extinguisher. But why? Because when I'm talking about water, I'm not talking about pure distilled water, but I'm talking about normal water, which contain dissolved material salts in it, right? So this water is a good conductor of electricity. So the normal water we use in our day-to-day life is a good conductor. So when you put this normal water on electrical equipments which has got fire, so the chances of getting electric shock is very high, because water will start conducting the electricity which might be present on those electrical wires or on those electrical equipments. Therefore, water is not at all a good choice to be used as fire extinguisher in fire involving electrical equipments. So, which is alternative choice then? The alternative choice is carbon dioxide. Now, what special is there in carbon dioxide that it can control fire? It's because carbon dioxide cannot act as a cooling agent, but it can do something else. So, what carbon dioxide actually does is it acts as a blanket over the substance which has caught fire. So, as I again said, there are three criteria: fuel, oxygen, heat. Now, water acts as a fire extinguisher because it attacks the third criteria. But carbon dioxide attacks the second criteria because carbon dioxide is a gas and oxygen is also a gas. This carbon dioxide is heavier than oxygen. Now, since it's heavier, it settles down. As a result, what happens is carbon dioxide acts as a blanket surrounding the entire substance. And where is oxygen? Oxygen is present in the surrounding, right? So, due to the blanket of due to the blanket of carbon dioxide, the contact of oxygen and the substance is being cut. Now, since the supply of oxygen is cut, therefore there is no oxygen supply, so there is no combustion, and so there is no fire. So that is how carbon dioxide act as fire extinguisher. Now, how do we get carbon dioxide? So, students, let me tell you, carbon dioxide is present in liquid form in fire extinguishers, right? You would have seen the red color cylinders inside, that is carbon dioxide in liquid form. When it's released, it neutralizes the oxygen that is actually carrying the fire, right, causing the fire. Another advantage of using carbon dioxide is as fire extinguisher is that fire does not recur immediately because of lack of oxygen, because all the oxygen is being sent out by carbon dioxide, so it actually neutralizes with the oxygen. So there is no more oxygen surrounding the substance, and as a result, there is no fire. In fact, this carbon dioxide is uh, released from the extinguisher that is also at ice cold temperature. That so it's extremely cold. So there are certain precautions needed to be followed while applying carbon dioxide in spaces which has got fire. So what we learn is we can control fires either by water or by using carbon dioxide. But the basic concept of controlling fire is that one of the three criteria needed for combustion needs to be limited. That is, one of those criteria needs to be falsified, and then combustion cannot happen. So there will be no fire, and this is how we control fires.